Here.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Here.
and Mayor Nervin.
Here. Let me know if the volume's okay. I had a group of Cub Scouts in here last Friday, and they were mucking with all the volume controls and having a good time having a little mock council meeting. So if it sounds okay, just let me know. If it doesn't, I'll make some adjustments. First up, we have approval of the meeting minutes from December 12th.
Move approval. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any comments, questions, corrections for the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. Our next item is a discussion item. It's an update on the status of the Management Partners Community Development Operational Analysis Action Plan. And Director Tolson's going to give us a presentation on where things are at there.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. We're doing an overview of the operational analysis that was done by Management Partners. Their final report was concluded in fall of 2021. So it really centered on, Okay, it's centered on 3 goals. Okay, 3 goals. All right. So it centered really on 3 primary goals. We provided in the staff report the action plan matrix, and we tried to identify those that we've completed, those that we're making progress on, and those that have not been started yet. Those weren't really grouped, I guess, by any, category of goals, so that's what I tried to do with just the presentation, but we can talk about anything that you'd like to. But the primary goals here are the enterprise land management system that really is much farther reaching than just community development. It's really, you think about it as project management tracking, so since there's so much interdependence between planning, inspections, engineering, water utility, assessor's office, payments with finance, public notices with clerk's office, it will be really far-reaching and impactful to the entire organization. Another category was application processes and materials, so just upgrading materials, information, trying to be as transparent and informative to our applicants as possible about expectations. A third category was really facility and spatial upgrades, and then lastly, investment in adaptive and the next generation of staff. Now that's not to discount current staff, and I guess I've kind of coined the term the next generation of staff. We have a pending vacancy and we have a potential retirement coming. We've overhauled the inspections division with new staff, kind of homegrown, our inspectors, so that this has been a continuous effort on our part, and I think it will continue to be as we move forward over the next decade. So that first primary goal of the ELMS system, the report indicated that it was really a high priority to invest in that technology. Many of the conveniences that are afforded to applicants both in other communities in southeastern Wisconsin, but just in general larger cities, is not something that's being afforded to Mequon applicants. And that's just, again, touching on transparency, access to information about the cycle of time that it takes to get through, also just really the status of where their applications might be. And in the absence of that land management system, there is a reduction in our ability to be analytical and track information and report building. So what I've done here is what's in black under the categories is what we've been able to accomplish with ELMS, and then everything in the blue is what's identified in the report but not yet accomplished. So within the ELMS, the report talks about procurement and then implementation. So the city has contracted with a firm to help us develop the request for the proposal. This was an opportunity to bring key staff members together and then map out really what our processes are for entitlement, start to finish, and then again that interdependence between departments and divisions. That was kicked off in 2022, and we are going to in early 2024 get back to working with those consultants. That will require the development of the RFP, procuring a vendor, as well as the system and full training, and then ongoing training, maintenance, and monitoring of not only the data, but how the program's working for us, and report building. There's also a recommendation to develop a cost recovery plan. So I think there's been discussion about a technology fee, some other concepts that have been thrown out there. The benefits really of this are consolidated information regarding the entitlement process, being interactive on our website with applications and payments, online scheduling for inspections or staff meetings, and then a portal really for not only staff but the public as well as applicants to find out where their project is, with which department, what details are being acknowledged, what if anything else is needed as part of the project. It also allows people to update. So even like in the inspections division, someone gets a new license number, state license number, they can automatically populate that. This also will address, and it's identified often in the report and throughout the recommendations, storage of plans in digital form instead of paper form. That will assist with retrieval, routing, and again, data-driven results. The tracking of these cycle times is not only to be transparent with our applicants, but also to be transparent about staff's performance of meeting those cycle times. The second primary goal was really process materials and spatial needs. The quote from the final report indicated that we are consumed with manual processes. The manual processes combined with the staff size does result in delays for higher priority work and policy initiatives that the city may want to take on. So again, everything in black is what we've been able to work through and accomplish. Process and implementation side of the house, we have worked through architectural review and design standards. We have worked through revisions of Planning Commission application materials. So at least those two sets of full packages in terms of information that's going out to the public are refreshed. In both of those cases, there have been some efficiencies created. You're going to see next week or next month a text amendment related to the architectural review. It's shifting some of that review process administratively to staff instead of the architectural review board. That means we can get customers in and out quicker and moving on with their permits and constructions and generating revenue in a quicker fashion as well. We do offer, but we've been able to highlight in these materials multiple access points for project information related to process and what staff needs are. So pre and post Planning Commission process, there is a lot of opportunity for either the applicant, developer, or just interested public to interject themselves and learn more about that process. We have on the Planning Division side received materials both pre and post Planning Commission in electronic format, so we're storing those all electronically. In 2024, the Inspections Division will take on that objective and start getting all of their plans in electronically. Some of you probably know, maybe some of our newer council members do not know, the city has retained all single-family residential development plans, all of them. So it is nice customer service to be able to provide to architects or homeowners to be able to come in and get their plans from their home from 1987 if they're thinking about an addition or redoing the bathroom. But that is a huge amount of paper storage. We actually last year contacted a company that would retrieve all of those plans, digitize them for us, code them, store them on an external hard drive until we can get up and running with ELMS, which will be a while, and then dispose of all of those plans for us. That fee came in at just under $400,000, and that's just to deal with the single family plan development. So we have work to do on what the game plan should be for storage. We've got some ideas that we can bring back to subcommittees or the council about how we can maybe start streamlining some of that and offering those plans up to homeowners, and maybe they want to store them instead of us storing them in the future. One of the other things related to process and implementation was monitoring inspections outcomes. There was a critique from the public that despite having a near final inspection, inspectors would go out and there would be a new set of problems or issues found on the site. So our new inspections supervisor has really focused on that in the past year. We have new inspectors, so I think it was a great opportunity, for him to be able to give guidance and try to overcome that. From what I understand, that has somewhat been resolved. So that's good news to report out. Finance department has worked on debit and credit card intake. The two things that have not been further pursued are those storage needs for all of the paper copies that we have. And then there was discussion about interactive space with stakeholders. I do think, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of upgrades to our conference rooms, and so it does allow for a lot of interactive conversations and being able to look at plans and GIS. But this talked about interactive space and better use of the atrium and lobby. Another spatial discussion in the report was maybe repositioning where DCD is located in City Hall to provide greater access and room to some offices and a little bit more space for plan reviews. The last one was primary goal of kind of next generation staffing. The management partners report did indicate that there are many things that are working well and our employees are skilled, knowledgeable, responsive, and helpful. So what we continue to do, and especially with new staff members, is we continue to train, make sure we're getting certifications done. There is a lot of cross-training among employees, but also across divisions. And we have worked to develop smaller teams of staff members to be able to execute some of those administrative approvals and be really efficient with those actions. So the Architectural Review Board, again, is a good example. We're going to be shifting from the review board reviewing and approving some of these structures to staff. By developing that smaller internal team, Jack and I would have the history of what's been acceptable or what are community sensitive design issues to the newer staff. So we're kind of passing along those values. We're, at the same time kind of training those new staff members on code requirements, where to find things in the code, and actually evaluating the plans associated with those. The three areas related to staffing that were identified in the report was a planning coordinator, so that there would be a point person for anybody in the public who wanted to better understand where their project was in the process and help troubleshoot. So if ELMS, isn't giving them all the information they need, or if they land at the counter, we've got someone who knows where to direct them into what staff and kind of guide them through that process. And then identifying a point of contact for complex projects. We have done that in the past, especially with some recent town center projects, the Schaefer development, where there was multiple different building components to that, and a variety of inspections. We did pinpoint, at least one planning staff member and one inspections member. So that development team, the architect, the contractors, always had somebody, the same person to go to. And in some of those cases too, we've actually done, bi-weekly meetings with the teams to help make sure those are coordinated. And then there is pointing out the need for a planning analyst for the ELMS system to make sure we're inputting data correctly, it's being monitored and maintained. So in terms of a summary, there were 32 overall recommendations. 17 of those 32 recommendations were related to ELMS or ELMS adjacent. As I mentioned, we kicked that process off in 2022. Out of the 32, there were about 26 that were identified as priority status, at the ultimate high level 1 or 2. 10 of those have been completed through 2023. 15 of those, though, are related to ELMS. So it's hard for us to say that we have accomplished, those priority status recommendations when we're not far enough along on the ELMS. And ELMS outcomes will affect some of the recommendations as it relates to staff, training, and then some of the things that we're asked to do web-based, like providing, you know, a coordinated page just related to development. So while it's outside of just community development's responsibility, it would land on a more generic page so somebody can understand the entitlement process from start to finish. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have or anything related to timing.
Thanks for the update. Not all of us were here when this process kicked off. Does anyone have any questions about the front end that initiated this? I think it was just a general need to identify ways to be more efficient with our time and have a little better customer service with our clientele. Sure, Alderman Bach.
I wasn't here when it was initiated, but I think it's great work. I mean, it's nice to see when a consultant comes in, you take the report and then look at that report and then create goals and action steps and actually follow through on that. Too often, sometimes consultants come in and there's not a lot of follow-up. So I think, I mean, there's a ton of work there. What's the timeline on that? That sounds like 17 EMLS. How soon or what's the timeline on that?
If you had seen the original plan, it would be done already. But for a variety of reasons, it's pushed out. But I think 2024 is going to be a big year, which is why we're refreshing this item for everyone. So.
Yeah. We've talked about getting together a small internal working group that has representatives from different departments, right? And getting back together with the consultant that helped us map out what we've been able to share with them with the development to date. And that's going to put them in a position to be able to get the RFP out on the street. And then I think, you know, the real world work will start to pick up.
So this is the year. I think part of it is we have to start expending the ARPA money that's
Yes.
going to pay for the enterprise land management system, so the software. So this is the year of action, and I'm glad your number came out the same as mine. I came up with 17 as well when I was reviewing it. Back at 7. You know, it's over half of the recommendations were tied to that aspect of it. So that's why the overall numbers don't look so good, because a lot of them are tied to one item. Any other questions from the committee? Everyone's happy with the update. We're going to hear a lot about this item throughout the year, so good for everyone just to start with an understanding of where we're at now, especially since, you know, maybe half of us weren't there when this journey started. So, any other questions for Director Tollefson? If not, we'll move on to our next item, which is informational items. It's our planning calendar for committee of the whole meetings. Now is a good time to, if there's items that need to move around on the calendar, to bring them up, or if there's any items that are missing. Alderwoman Tlaco.
I would request the April 9th meeting, floodway zoning, be moved to a later date. I'll have a lot to input in that, and I will not physically be able to be at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Bach.
Maybe we could make a swap on that one, because I would be interested in moving the bluff construction sooner. I know it was originally at January, and then in December I saw that it was in March, but the city administrator reminded me that it's a flexible schedule, and so I apologize, I was unaware of that. But that, ever since the Vermont Park structure was built, that floating bridge, I had one request from somebody along the lake shore that really spurred this to get this on the agenda. And then, unbeknownst to me, another resident submitted a request to staff, of which it was denied. And then I think there was an appeal committee last week, and he was unsuccessful. So I know that person is willing, wants to get to work on this and would like an answer. So for those reasons, it would be great if we could have that discussion a little bit earlier.
We will look to move that up to either March or April at the very latest.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. I see that in February we were discussing South Central zoning options, which I assume is all the land contiguous to the industrial park, which some of you may know I've had concerns about rezoning some of that to residential in the past. My concern with the way that we are looking at this is I feel like it's a little bit in a vacuum, in the sense that I don't think we should rezone the South Central land until we're further along with the Southwest Industrial Park. And there's a lot of missing data there, especially the legal review, especially water capacity. And if it is determined that it makes no sense to do an industrial park on the southwest side of town, I think it's just a huge mistake to continue down this path of rezoning the center of town. It's like, how big do we need to be?
Hold
So-
those thoughts from when we talk about it in February.
Yeah, so I guess my request is, as staff prepares the packet though, I mean, to try to give some sensitivity to that, you know, like what, if we're going to residential, like what kind of density are you talking about in the South Central? And
I think that's the topic of the
Yeah,
meeting, to get
so-
input on that. And so I think you won't be totally disappointed in what we might
Okay.
talk about in February, but
okay, well, I'd love to have that water legal review soon, so I could kind of come to my final conclusions on swapping these areas. Thank you.
so staff tuck that one away, and if we need to move it a little bit to get some more info, we can do that. But without having the February meeting now,
Yeah, I'd love to delay it.
it's good to have the input up front. Any other feedback on the calendar? Hearing and seeing none. We can have feedback at any time, not just here. But hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn so we can start the council meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned, and will immediately commence the common council meeting for Tuesday, January 9th. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchak. Alderman Talaco.
Here.
Alderman Meyer.
Here.
Alderman Hancher.
Here.
Alderman Bach.
Here.
Alderman Parrish.
Here?
Alderman Schneider.
Here.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Here.
Mayor Nurkic.
Here. First up, we have a public hearing. The item is ordinance 2023-1657, an ordinance amending Chapter 58 of the Mequon Municipal Code to rezone the property located at 11743 North Port Washington Road from R3 single-family 1 acre to R5 single-family half acre with a PUD overlay, and amend the city's land use plan from residential 1 to 1.5 acre to residential plex in connection with the development of a 19-lot cluster subdivision. This was recommended by the Planning Commission on December 4th. The first reading was at Common Council on December 12th. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
Move
Going to public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of going into public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. We have one resident registered to speak, Charles Blay from 11643 on Astorwood Circle. He supports and wishes to speak. Please come to the podium, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. It's 11693 is the address.
You're right, I read that wrong.
Well, I do live at 11693 North Astor Woods, which is in the Astor Woods condominium complex. I've lived here for 3 years now, moving from Illinois to Mequon. Our property is the only property that currently exists. It's both my neighbors and mine, I should say, because we are a two-family type of an arrangement. But my neighbor and my property is the only property that has facing to this development as it currently exists. There are some lots available, and there's a whole property to the north that has plenty of room for development for the future, but none of this is in existence today, except for the house that I live in and my neighbor lives in. I bought this house primarily because it backs up to a forest. And it's a forest in several different directions. It goes west and it goes north from where I live. I have a very small backyard, and the yard is almost right up to the setback requirement. Probably is up to the setback requirement for this home against this property line. I'm not here to object to this project. I'm not here to object to the density of the project, although less density would certainly probably help address some of the issues that I'm concerned about. But I am concerned about how this property, how this development is going to impact my property. I think the minute a saw comes out, there's going to be a lot of trees that are going to be removed right in front of my eyes. And I realize that I don't have a right as a homeowner to tell another property what they can or can't do or build. I'm not here to do that. I'm only here to say that I need an advocate in this council to understand that this is going to substantially change the ambiance of my property. And I implore you to please work with me and the developer and my condo association to find a way to protect the property for and its value as this project moves forward. I've spoken with Mr. Humber. He built our home. I'm very pleased with the relationship I've had with Mr. Humber, and I'm sure we can work things out, but I wanted you to be aware that, to my knowledge, I'm the only homeowner and my neighbor who are immediately impacted by this project. So with that, I'll say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Since it is a public hearing, is there anyone else here tonight who wishes to speak on this item? If so, please come forward and state your name and address. Hearing and seeing no further participants in the public hearing, is there a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are back in regular session. Perhaps Jack could give us a quick overview about what this is for those who may not have followed it at Planning Commission, and just describe the project real quick for
Sure.
us.
I just have the GIS up on the screen just to give you some site context. It's kind of hard to see the property lines, but this is the site we're talking about right now. Astor Woods is located down here, and I assume the gentleman lives in this condo right here. We've been approached by numerous people over the last several months about this property. It's been for sale for a little bit of time, and we've been approached for commercial development, multifamily. So when Lakeside approached us, we were originally talking about the Plex development, kind of matching Astor Woods, and one of the things we talked about was, well, maybe we could do a single-family half-acre design. We don't have a lot of that in Mequon. The only other one that was really zoned for right now was Concord Creek Reserve, which I can kind of show you what that looks like. So we met a few times. We kind of hashed out some differences, and basically this is the plan they came up with. So this plan basically is 19 single-family condo pads on the property, and it basically is a conservation subdivision. It preserves this area back here. This is the wooded area that the gentleman was talking about. This is all primary corridor back here. There's a large stand of some really nice trees back here. There's a wetland that sticks in through here. There is some older ash trees that are in this area here that'll have to come down, but for the most part, this wooded area is really nice. So we wanted to, our first goal was to protect it as much as possible. So we did the conservation design. They came up with a plan with these pads that would allow flexibility within the pad, and they asked for basically a 15-foot separation between the pads. So that doesn't necessarily mean every unit will be 15 feet from one another, but the pads themselves have to be at least 15 foot. They asked for a 0 setback off this front public road. We actually increased that to 10, and Planning Commission approved it at 10 feet just to make up for any potential grade issues that come about there. Originally, the road was shown down here, which kind of lined up a little bit with the theater entrance, but that bifurcated the wetlands, so we requested to be moved a little further to the north. The downside is that it's still right in, right out, but with the residential development, we didn't feel that was a major issue. One of the things we also added was we added per our R1 conservation subdivision requirements, we added them to dedicate this as right-of-way to the north, so if this property in the future ever develops, they would have a road connection that would tie it to the development off of this cul-de-sac, basically. So this was approved at Planning Commission. I can answer any questions. One of the changes that I know I talked a little bit about with Alderman Schneider was typically we require 50% side loading garages. In this case, it was reduced to 40% because the width of this parcel doesn't really make it easy to come off with a little leg or anything like that. And then since we reduced the width this way so much, these are a little tighter together, so it's tough to get those side loaders in there as much as possible. So they allowed it to go down to 40%, which is basically a difference between 8 and 10 units. There's also a couple specimen trees located in this area here. They were not required to be saved for PC. I think PC wanted another kick at the cat later on once we get further on into the design process. There are specimen trees along this north property line that will be saved, and then all the specimen trees in this location will be saved as well. So Planning Commission approved it, like the mayor said, at the December meeting at a 6-2 vote.
Maybe it's worth pointing out on the map too that there is I'm not sure what the composition of the landscape buffer is on the south end of the property between this parcel and the gentleman who just spoke, but I do see one on the plan there, so I'm not
Yeah,
sure what all
we-
those symbols mean, but
Yeah, we're still at concept stage. They're showing a buffer there. I can kind of zoom in a little bit. I mean, we'll vet that out fully when we get further along in the process, but as you can see, he's identifying a landscape buffer here that would run the stretch of the property from the wooded area to the front of any other further development. There's a wetland basically up in this area that would probably stop where the landscape buffer would end.
all right, so there's the overview. Any questions from the council? Alderwoman Schneider.
You know, we require 50% side loading garages in these kind of developments typically. First of all, before I get into that, I would like to say I am a fan of this kind of development. I'm a fan of preserving all this land in continuity rather than breaking it up into lots. I think the cost of that sometimes is that the density is all in one place as opposed to being spread out over the property. So it's not like I'm not in favor of this sort of development. I am. However, back to the side loading garages. These houses are pretty close together, and there's a reason why we want half side loading garages, because if you have a lot of homes that have front loading garages, it gives kind of a sterile, uninviting look to the neighborhood. And these homes the pads are only 15 or 20 feet apart, so these houses are pretty close together. So given that, I'm not in favor of allowing the change to go to 40% of side loading garages, meaning more front facing garages, because I think it would be unattractive and I don't think it would create a nice neighborhood, and these houses are very close together, and I think that would intensify the problem. So we can talk about it more, but at the end I'm just going to make a motion that we change it back to what our usual ordinance is, which is 50%.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone else? Alderman Meyer.
Just a quick question on the map you first showed us. It says 7.9 acres, and this says 9 point something acres.
Well, there's three actual, it's hard to see the property lines up there. This the property is 9.6, this one is 1, and then this one's over 1. So it's all three of them combined. It's all under the same ownership. That's where you get the 9.8.
Okay. And second, there was some concern about, the property itself. We do have Esther Woods that's to the south of that. What's the kind of basic difference in between those two?
In terms of density, it's within hundredths of one another. I think 1.93 units an acre. This will be in Astor Woods. I have 1.88 units an acre. So this is just a hair denser than Astor Woods. And Astor Woods, they could have had more density to it, but I think their design choice of with the larger single family side by side, they weren't able to add any more units. But the R6 actually lets you go up to 4 units an acre. So they're pretty within 4 100ths of another, 5 100ths of another in terms of density.
Alderman Bach.
Is there what about the traffic on Port Washington Road? Is there a stop sign there, or is there, turning left? Is there any concerns about that going on Port Road from there?
There's no stop sign there. This will be a right in, right out, very little volume. This is, Port Washington Road's obviously a county road, so they'll have jurisdiction over that. They'll need to get permits through the county for that, but with the single-family use here, I don't see any major issue in terms of traffic volume in and out of there.
Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the applicant. Thank you to the homeowner, Mr. Blythe, who came to speak. I'm the alderman for this district, so I just wanted to express why I'll generally be voting in favor of the rezone. It was recommended for approval by Planning Commission. Certainly respect their review of the development. I've heard actually no concerns from the neighbor directly. I was aware of maybe one concern, and I know that they were meeting with Lakeside, and I guess I just wanted to normally we'll hear a lot more comments and concerns, and I think the way you approached it by meeting one-on-one with homeowners and having meetings with the neighbors is the right way to do it, and really all developers should go through that process, so it shows your experience in our community. Thank you. I shared the same concern about the setbacks. I don't know why we're going so close to the road. I was pleased that staff did 10 feet. I wish it was more. I get the effect of going with more, though. The density will be much less.
Well, the front setback issue is more because of the width of the lot. If we would have increased it, these are already pushing up against that top north setback line here. So you'd have to shift this road down then, which puts more units closer to the Astor Woods. So it's a little tight. I mean, we do have others. I mean, Lac de Coeurs has a 15-foot separation between buildings, and those are parcels. The Highlands, which from Olu Park, which I referenced in the memo, that's 20 foot. So it is a little tight, but there are other areas that have similar type of setbacks. I mean, this is kind of unique, but I think because of the long narrowness of this property, it kind of is justifiable.
It is, but on the same note, I do agree with Alderwoman Schneider. We probably should be consistent with I'm not sure if you've used that. What rationale we've used in the past to
try to be consistent. I mean, it's a policy. It's not an actual ordinance that dictates this. We always make it as part of a recommendation through the PUD.
Sure. Is the effect of going to half and half, is it dropping it down a unit?
No, they'll just have to have 2 more side loading garages. Instead of 8, they'll have to have
Is it
10.
possible, though, with the...
Yeah,
I thought that wasn't possible.
I think you have the ability through 1 through 4 here. If you drop 3 down a little bit to the south, I think you can do 3, 4.
Okay, well, I definitely think that should be part of the approval then. Let's maintain our consistency. If there was a developer hardship and it's like, oh, I'm losing a lot and I can't do my development anymore, I guess I would maybe understand, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Let's stay consistent if you don't mind. I guess I'll just let me finish, and then the mayor will address
if you'd like
you.
to come up to you can sit here in front if you
And then
wish, like we normally would.
Just my final comment,
Yeah.
so I could finish up,
Yep.
and would be that the other reason why I'm in favor of this would be it easily could have been a commercial development. There's no land left on the corridor. It easily could have been apartments or senior or another bank. So this is great. Thank you.
If you want to respond to that, go right ahead. Oh, yep. We have to push the talk, sorry. If it's green, your mic is live.
Yes, Scott Humber, Lakeside Development. If you look at the plan, it actually, at this point, I think has probably closer to 30% side-loaded garages. To get a proper side-load garage, you need at least 25 feet for a turnaround, and you don't want to be right up against your neighbor's property with the edge of your driveway. So there's going to have to be another 6 to 10 feet. So now we're talking about the potential of these being 30 feet plus apart. So we would end up losing a significant amount. And really, the whole idea here is to have this cluster development. If you look at Astor Woods, I think 90%, or I think there are only 2 or 3 of the homes that have side yard entrances. Everything else is a front-loaded garage. And so we're surprised to hear this objection.
Actually, I counted them, and I think there's only 4 that have a side load garage out of 30-some units.
At Astor Woods?
Yes. Is this thing working?
You may have to get uncomfortably close to it. Just, yeah, cozy up to it a little bit. It'll feel odd, but you'll get good mic pickup. If we turn the gain up anymore, then we get all this interference.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you said that there are 4 units in Astor Woods out of 36 that have side-loaded garages. So I'm trying to look if it's a recommendation, it's not a requirement.
Yeah,
I
this is,
think
yeah,
it was-
this is a policy, and that probably started after Astor Woods development took place. I think this happened probably in the early 2000s when we started asking for and getting the side loading entry at 50%. I can't speak, I wasn't here when Astor Wood was developed, but I think it was prior to that.
Yeah, I think the shift in the policy change was, post-dates the construction of Astor Woods. Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring a little context into this. The resident came and spoke, and I want to address that directly. Usually we'd ask Jack to comment on it. The plan does allow for a buffering of trees behind the homes being built, and then I see on Google Maps that you also have a deciduous line of trees as well. If you look at the plan just to the west of you and a little bit north, the majority of that woods, the goal for this subdivision was to do a conservation subdivision, and the concept of a conservation subdivision is one in which you preserve the natural aspects of the property, hence the forest, right? The forest has a bunch of specimen trees in it. Even if they'd come forward and ask to cut it down, I don't know that would meet approval by Planning Commission, and I know Tree Board would definitely object to that, in which I've got a meeting on Thursday, on some other subjects. So, just giving you a little comfort, it is a property that was a field before, and, when I grew up in Mequon in 1973, we had, we were a one house, one cul-de-sac subdivision, and then behind me was all field, and they put in subdivisions with new homes, and it was a little adjustment, and I empathize with what you're going through. What I like as a policymaker about this is that it is the conservation subdivision. It does preserve those woods, right? I did vote no against this at Planning Commission, and I'll share a little insight as to why, just for the fellow council members as well as anybody listening at home. My biggest concern just was mainly with the density. I didn't want to reduce the density. What came forward was to reduce the density based on this concept, and I didn't want to reduce the density. I wanted to leave it where it was at an acre. I felt that they could build, beautiful homes and anything else. If I were to handpick a developer to build something like this, Lakeside Development would be on the short list of people that I would trust in our community to do something that would be a quality development of this standpoint. But because I couldn't say that just about any developer that would want to build within this density that I would support that. You can't pick favorites as a policymaker. You have to legislate based on policy and what's right for the community and really the vision of the community moving forward. I just had simple objections with the closeness of the homes, and I have a lot of respect for Tom Zabchak and his team over there and the homes that they build and what they've done for our community. I just simply voted no based on the proximity to the homes. Again, I'd like to see the side loading, where we have it, as a city, policy, moving forward. So, whoever does make the motion, I would ask that you do address the side loading. I'll probably vote no again for this, just for the same premise that I just don't like how close these homes are together. I've been a part of increased density discussions since I was elected to office, and this is a good one, and it gives me pain to even have any objection to it, because I know it's going to be great. But it just didn't fit where I was comfortable enough to say, blanket statement, yes, it was a go for me. So, you know, that's why I voted against it at Planning Commission, but waiting to hear what the rest of you have to say about it tonight.
Alderwoman Talaco.
I'll be voting against the rezoning. I think it's too much and too little of a space. While it could be beautiful, it can't meet all of our guidelines. Part of Mequon is not living on top of people. They need to have yards. They need to be able to have that backyard. There's too much and too little of a space. It does not fit what Mequon stands for. Sorry.
If I can.
Alderman Bach. Hold on a sec.
I mean, I understand where Alder Talaco is coming from, but, you know, I pass this almost every day on Port Washington Road, and, you know, that's been kind of a sore eye property for a long time, in my opinion. There's other things that could go on there. It's right off of Port Washington Road. I mean, I'm just happy to see a residential development going in there off of Port Washington Road when so many other things could go there. So, you know, I'm gonna vote for it. And again, I trust the developer and hopefully can work with the homeowner to address concerns. Sounds like those discussions have started, and the screening or whatever the case may be, I trust that could be worked out. I actually think a residential development there off of Port Road it will be an improvement for that site.
Alderwoman Schneider.
I just want to say one other positive thing about this development, since I'm the one that brought up the side loading garages. These are single-story, you know, so bedroom on the first floor, and they take up more space because of that, because they're not 2 stories. No.
2-story.
Oh, they're 2-story, I'm sorry.
Bedroom on
The
the
primary bedroom's on
Oh,
the first one.
I misunderstood listening to Planning Commission. But my point is that I think our community needs this kind of development from the standpoint of first floor masters, because we have a lot of people in my age group who are looking to stay in Mequon and who would like to have a home that does not involve climbing stairs unless they have guests, for instance. So I think that does fit a need for the community. And again, because of the fact that we are in Mequon encouraging these conservation subdivisions now with trying to preserve our open spaces, and especially trying to preserve the open spaces that have wetlands or a lot of specimen trees on them. So I'm not against the project in general. I understand why there needs to be a more dense grouping of homes in this kind of structure, but I'm just going to make the motion. In fact, maybe I'll make it now. So I move to move forward to this rezoning with the stipulation that we do require the 50% side loading garages as per our guidelines.
That was a motion, and as with a proper amendment, I think if
Can
someone
we still make
seconds that,
comments?
Pardon?
Are we allowed to make further comments?
Yeah, why don't you respond to that, and then
Well, no,
I might make a couple
I
comments
should
myself.
Support. I mean, the side-loaded garage is going to mean there's going to be a lot more asphalt. We'll probably lose 4 to 5 home sites, which maybe that'll make the common council happy, but it is going to make economically it tougher to justify this project. And again, whereas we would have more grass and trees, we're going to have more concrete as we put more side-loaded garages in, which I think was the reason that staff approved the 40%.
Well, I think staff recommended deviating slightly from our normal current suggestion to go with 50%. And I think staff has leeway to make those recommendations. Ultimately, the council will decide, I guess, on a couple of points before we get too much farther. First, regarding the density, yes, this is more dense than the average Mequon lot, but it is almost the exact same density as the subdivision just to the south of it. And Astor Woods is one of the nicer side-by-side condo developments in the city. So I don't think that necessarily means you're going to get lower quality or something that's not desirable. I think those do quite well. And I think there might be some misinterpretation about the depiction of the building pads versus what will actually get built on them. That's where the house has to go. That's not the size of the house. The house is likely going to be smaller or shaped irregularly, so it has some architectural interest, and that will tend to create more space between the units as well. This is just the maximum size of the pad, and our clever architects got to figure out what fits in there. So a couple of points there. I do agree. We are trying to promote the use of conservation subdivisions, because, I mean, if someone wanted to build 9 houses here now, they could just chunk it up into big 9-acre lots, and you'd have wetland requests to fill, and you'd have more specimen tree removal requests because they'd be using the space towards the back of the lot. So this is pretty well in line generally with what we tend to ask for, conserving natural resources and those desirable spaces. We also tend to like single-family units quite a lot here too, so we just want to make sure before we propose or vote on something that we're not making it too hard to get what we want. Because the next thing that could go in here, if this doesn't go here, very well could be a bank. I don't think we need another bank. So I'm done talking. I'm happy to turn it back to the council. We have a motion. I'm not sure we have a second, though.
I'll second.
We have a second and a third. Okay. Any more discussion? Alderman Meyer.
In favor of Alderman Schneider's motion also, but, and I'm finding it hard pressed to vote for this. I probably will. But normally when we have a conservation subdivision, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, we may add a little bit to the density inside of it. You know, I'm hard pressed to find out where we've added double the amount of units inside to do a conservation subdivision.
Well, the conservation subdivision itself doesn't determine density, it's the yield of the base zoning. So in this case, they're requesting an R5 base zoning, which is half-acre lots. So that they do a yield plan, which then yields the 19 lots. That's how you come up with the number. Our typical subdivisions are 1 acre base, so that's why it's different. So
Yeah, but I mean, you know, most of the time we do that, we'll have something out, basically out in the country area, and we'll be having, you know, 5-acre lots, and most of the time they're clustering those 5-acre lots inside of an area so we can save a lot of the surrounding stuff. And we may allow a few more lots inside there because of that. But like I said before, even though the request...
No, we don't allow additional lots. That's only if you use TDR credits.
Correct, yeah. So in R1 subdivision, you use a 5-acre yield to determine your number of lots, unless there's a TDR credit.
The last time someone proposed a 5-acre conservation subdivision, we denied it. And they built 5-acre homes anyway.
I'm just saying the fact that normally is what we were doing beforehand, but like I said before, I'm finding it hard pressed because that's double the amount inside that area. The reason why I'm probably going to vote for it is because it is close to the same amount of density as it is for Astor Woods in that area. So, but like I said before, we'll be voting along with Alderman Schneider on her amendment.
Any further comments? Alderman Hancher.
Yeah, I would be in support of this subdivision. I don't see the problem with the density. I live in Huntington Park. Our lots are smaller than this. We have less than, most of our lots are less than a half acre. So when you talk about, and the quality of life is not diminished because we have less than half acre lots. I also don't have the problem with the side loading driveways. You have 40%, to me that's fine. I don't think that's going to make or break the subdivision. And I think this subdivision is something that is needed in Mequon, because in my area of in my aldermanic area, we have similar developments, and a lot of the people that live there are people that are retired and want to be in the community. They don't want to have their own single-family home. They want to be in a condo, and they're very happy there. So I don't see, and you have a conservation area, which is just another added. So I see this as a good development for this area.
Thank you, Alderman Hancher. I guess there seems to be a little consensus building around the approval with sticking to the 50% side loading garage, which I'm not sure if it'll take out 4 or 5. It'll definitely take out 2 or 3. It'll be considerably less dense than Astor Woods to the south after that happens.
I mean, I think again, I don't have to build it, so it's easier for me to say, but I think Unit 6, Unit 4, Unit 3 could be pushed back. Unit 2, you could pick up 4 easily, so you might lose 1, I would think, but I don't think you're losing more than that.
All it takes is 1 unit to go down, and it's less dense than Astor Woods.
Yeah.
Because it is almost identical. It's within less than 0.1 units per acre. Are there any further comments, or should we call the question? All right. Discussion time is done. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Alderman,
We want to restate it, though, so approval as presented, but with the stipulation that we stick to the 50% side-loaded garages.
Can we split the vote? I thought there were some people that may be going for the...
Sure.
for the
So
We
let
can-
me
we
just
can call
split
the
the vote.
question
Let
on
me
just
just
the-
say, I move to amend it to require the typical 50% side loading garages. That's a standalone vote.
So we'll vote on just the amendment first. So just the amendment to require, there's a motion and a second on just the amendment, and then we'll vote on the proposal as amended. Okay. So the first vote will be if you agree with holding firm on the 50% side-loaded garages. So if that's well understood, please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Alderman Talaco,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
No.
Alderman Bach,
No.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Aye.
5-2.
5-2. Who abstained?
It's gotta be 3.
Got 8.
There's 3.
Oh, 6-2. Okay.
6-2, my apologies.
Perfect, okay. So 6-2, that motion, or that amendment passes, so now we probably need a separate motion and a second
Oh.
for just
Yeah.
the proposal
I-
as
I
amended.
mean- Move to,
You have the
um,
motion already.
Do we?
You just split the question, so.
Perfect, thank you
you've
for that
done the one,
clarification.
now you do the other.
So now we'll vote on approval of the project as amended. Please also call the roll.
Alderman Talaco,
No.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk.
Aye.
7-1, that passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations, we'll look forward to seeing a revised plan with some side loaders.
It'll be a great project.
It will be, you do good work in Mequon, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have personal appearances and public comment. Citizens wishing to address the Common Council on any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. If you desire to be heard on any agenda item, you may be heard when the item is considered on the agenda. Please speak into the mic at the podium. Time limit is 5 minutes. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak on any item not on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none. We'll move on to public officials' reports. I have nothing to report, but the city administrator might.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and those watching from home on television or over the internet. Just a couple of quick updates. Previously, we had reported out from a staff perspective that we would have the Chief Operating Officer for the Republican National Convention in attendance at tonight's meeting to give an update on the host committee's work relative to managing impacts for the convention, which will be taking place later this year in July, as well as working with businesses throughout the southeast Wisconsin region to involve them in ongoing efforts around the event and attendant planning. Unfortunately, she was called out of town and wasn't able to make it tonight, so our invited guest will be appearing on the February agenda. And then, spinning ahead 3 weeks from tomorrow, it'll be January 31st, the last day of the month, and that will be the deadline by which residents may put holiday trees out on their curb for pickup by the City Public Works Department if they have not done so already. And that is also the last day here at City Hall where we will be accepting payment for first installment property taxes. So January 31st is the deadline for those two items. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on, we have the consent agenda where we have a rather small list of only 5 sets of meeting minutes or reports. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to
the consent
approve.
agenda? Motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, all's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the consent agenda is approved. We have no ordinances. We also have no resolutions. We have no specified unfinished business from prior meetings. We do have one appointment for the District 3 Ethics Board member, Matthew Freese. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Looks like a good guy, good resume, good fit for our Ethics Board. Hearing and seeing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Mr. Freese is now a member of the Ethics Board. That brings us to 2 potential closed session items. So I'll read these and we'll vote on them independently. The first is Venture Properties Claim. The Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Prin 1, Prin G, for the purposes of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as deemed appropriate. Is there a motion to go into public closed session, public hearing, the anti-public hearing, closed session? There's a motion and is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the, well, do you have to call the roll, please? Yeah, please call the roll on whether you agree to go into closed session or not.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk, Alderman Talako, and Mayor Norgren.
Aye. So the ayes have it for that item. The next item is personnel evaluation of the city administrator. The Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Prin 1, Prin C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as deemed appropriate. Is there another motion to go into this closed session item? Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk,
Aye.
Alderman Talako, Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
and Mayor Norgren.
Aye. We will go into closed session for both those items. I don't anticipate we'll return, so good night, everyone. We'll do it in closed session. Yeah.